Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Train Man, and welcome back to the Zombie Train, episode 208. This is an episode where I fill in some gaps that were left over due to the map being moved, and I'm still... There are still some things missing. This was just replacing some textures, some greenery, and eventually I gave up on the actual normal filling in, and you'll see in about a second. Excuse me. I decided to go for the grid fill, which doesn't look as good, but nobody's going to be looking at it that hard anyways. So anyways, let's go find the episode that our question was from. And this was Zombie Train episode 191. Whoops. Train 191. This should take me right to it. It was the episode about the Swiss, as was the last thing about it. Also, North Korea, did they nuke them or what happened? And that was Eastrail11 asking that question. Now, I will preface this by saying that if you want a better picture of what went on in North Korea, not that anybody has a particularly good picture, read World War Z, the book by Max Brooks. He covers what went on during the war pretty extensively. So, anyways, the North Koreans, as I understand it, had an elaborate system of underground tunnels and bunkers. Before the war, I don't know what they were being used for, but I do know that once the war began, the entire population of the country was sent down into these bunkers. And that includes Glorious Leader. I don't know what sort of stock they had, what sort of supplies they had in these bunkers, but basically, the entire war went by and the country was dead silent. There was no transmissions whatsoever out of the place. And this led to eventually, once things settled down, I believe it was either Russian or U.S. forces, I can't remember, I just remember hearing the news as it got passed down to me. I was a little bit busy with things that were not North Korea at this point. That they had cracked it open, and there was nothing living in there. There was plenty of undead. The assumption is that there must have been a zombie that got in, and basically they weren't able to defend themselves in that bunker. And as far as is understood, since they had locked themselves underground, there was no escape, and there was basically no survival. So, now, I'm going to be honest. That may be unsubstantiated. I haven't been able to check the book to see what Brooks had to say about it. I don't know if the things that I heard are completely accurate, because, again, I'm just hearing, second or third hand information while I'm working at my desk in Quonset. But, by my understanding, there was nothing in the country, basically. And by nothing, I mean nothing worthwhile. Nothing worth writing home about, and probably, I'd wager, nothing very alive either. When a place like that goes dark for that long, you really... There's no reasonable expectation of that anybody's alive. Because people put out an awful lot of radio transmissions. I know North Korea, they're sort of doing their thing and they close themselves in and don't want to talk to anybody. But seriously, a bunker like that is not sustainable for too long. And you want to be able to contact the outside world, at least most of the time. So, and it's not like the zombies are going to be attracted to radio transmissions. They aren't aware of them. I don't know. From what I've heard and from what I expect, I just figure they all died. And that was the first and last and only thing I heard about North Korea. It's, just rumors at this point, I guess. But anyways, they really... I don't know why they built the tunnel system. I don't know what made them think it was a great idea to go down into there. Well, actually, no. That's not entirely true. A lot of people figured that a tunnel system or tunnels like that were really great places to hide out. And I may have talked about this a little bit before, but let me go off on this tangent. In the Zombie Survival Guide, Brooks talks about the survivability of people living in tunnels. Now, the only other, and I won't call this a reference because of course it isn't real, but the only other take on this is the game Metro 2033, and that takes place after a nuclear war, not a zombie infestation. So, the idea is you can seal yourself in these tunnel systems, and you're safe, and you can be self-sufficient, and you're closed in, etc. And that's real good. That's all well and good. The theory is solid. But if you get one chink in your armor, if you get one zombie inside, then you're trapped in with it. And it doesn't take much for the Solanum virus to spread. I mean, a bite sounds like a lot, but since the incubation period is so long, sometimes, a bite could go unnoticed or just ignored for a significant period of time, and then you have a zombie. Then you have a zombie in the middle of everything, which is not something you want to happen, and which is something we were very wary about on the train for a very long time. You don't pick up, hitchhikers typically, and we did an awful lot of that. We did an awful lot of picking people up when they needed to be picked up and taken someplace, and until we were certain that they were not going to suddenly turn into one of the undead, they would either be kept under watch, or at the very least they'd undergo an examination head to toe. The incubation period, I believe, is about 24 hours. So, if they made it a day, they were generally fine. Anyways, back to the tunnels thing. Most of the subway systems in the major cities had some sort of holdouts that didn't last very long. The reason for this is, it's twofold. The first part is, major cities are already dangerous in an event like World War Z, because you have a lot of people, which turn into a lot of zombies, in a very concentrated area, with a lot of nooks and crannies, a lot of corners, a lot of, places where zombies could theoretically hide. Not that they're trying to, but they aren't smart enough to do that. But in every building, behind every door, in bedrooms, in closets, in bathrooms, wherever, it's the kind of thing where clearing a city is exceptionally dangerous. Much, much more so than clearing any other form of terrain. Except, I don't know, maybe jungle or something like that. We didn't have to deal with any of that, thank God. So, that on its own sort of should say something about trying to live in a city. Now, I know people that have done it. Evelyn Caspiana, who was part of our train crew, we picked her up outside of Chicago. She lived in the city for a while, but she was one of a few, and she was lucky, and she put her skills to good use. Martial artist and all that. She was able to stay one step ahead of the Zax, which is not something that your average bloke is going to be able to do on a daily basis, which is why most people did not survive. And to come around to so already you're going to find subway systems and metros in populated areas. You're not going to find them in the middle of nowhere where you wouldn't be dealing with humans anyways. Although I do know some people that tried to board up railroad tunnels, or former railroad tunnels, and then were a little bit more successful because we didn't, have to drive through there. And these are people where, a railroad tunnel, or just a tunnel in general, is not so bad, as long as you know where all the entrances are. If it's an older style tunnel, or, if it's a shorter one or something like that, you literally only have two entrances to worry about, and if you're a decent carpenter, or you do well with masonry, you'll be able to block those things up in no time. There are some problems with a tunnel, of course. Most of the fact being you're underground and you're not going to be able to grow very much unless you have power, in which case that presents a whole nother set of problems, which I need to come around to. There was, I believe, one underground community that actually managed to thrive, that actually managed to do well. And I never had any personal contact with them, so I can't tell you how they did it. I just know that they had underground everything. They did in fact, there's enough people and enough systems out there where it's kind of hit or miss. Eventually you're going to get someone who does everything right. And they did not rush into the system at the very beginning. They went in from an exterior entrance and managed to clear out areas one by one, which, like I said, extremely dangerous. It's amazing they did that. And managed to basically use the sewage systems and storm drain systems as water storage, partially diverting storm drains and stuff like that to filtration, to drink, and the rest of it run through hydroelectric pumps, or, hydroelectric turbines, sort of makeshift ones, of course, just to generate a little bit of power, and to generate a little bit of, electricity for lights for crops. And I was amazed when I heard about this. But, anyways, the people that go down into these subway systems, like I just illustrated, it takes a lot. You need to have, if you want to have food, you have to have power. If you want to have power, you really have to be smart about resources, and you really need to get lucky as well. Having decent power on hand is really something that not many communities came by, and most of the communities that did come by that were powered by, at this point, ancient hydroelectric plants that either just functioned on their own or had a few careful guardians, etc. And if you think about it, if you're underground and you're in the darkness, either you're going to be using electricity for light, which, go back to the power thing, or you're going to be using something combustible for light, in which case, now you need ventilation, or you already needed ventilation, but now you need really good ventilation, because you're making smoke. And it adds to it. Subway systems theoretically are a decent place to hide out for a short period of time, and then make your escape from. They are not really good places to set up a community. A subterranean community is very, very difficult to set up. I'm sure, like you guys understand, you either need to be very well planned and very well thought out, and have a lot of infrastructure put into it, like, I don't know, I'll use another fictional reference here, like the city of Ember, or you just have to get excruciatingly lucky, which, let's be honest, isn't going to happen to most people, and didn't happen to most people. That's why most people that fled underground died. Also, the other thing, zombies' moans already carry. They already carry pretty immense distances in open air. They carry much, much further underground, where everything echoes, and the slightest footstep or misstep or dropping something on the ground is going to reverberate through an empty subway system like a gunshot. And don't even start thinking about using firearms. Not only are you going to kill your own hearing, which is kind of beside the point, everybody's going to hear you. And I don't just mean humans, obviously. So, World War Z does stress the downsides of trying to put yourself in a subway system. I know some people who fled Yonkers went into the New York City subway system, and then later we found them as zombified corpses or as just bodies. It's something that looks like a good idea on the surface, no pun intended, but once you get down there, there's a lot of things that you're just not going to have access to. You're not going to be able to do. And frankly, I don't know how the North Koreans figured it was a good idea, and I don't know how too many people that went down there, if anybody really thought it through. Because I'm not sure if anybody did. Because, like I said, you realize very quickly that it's a very bad idea. So, that's what happened to them. That's what happened to a lot of people. That's thankfully not what happened to us. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next week. Train Man out.